Why are you this way? And they'll say, I am this way because of these events that have happened to me 10 years ago. What they're really saying is I had an event that's changed me biologically, and I have not been able to change since.
Check one, check.
And it's entirely possible that people use the problems and conditions in their life to reaffirm their addiction to frustration, to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion. So they don't know they're doing that consciously, but they're becoming addicted to the life they don't even like.
I have a quote here that I wrote down. I wanted to play back to you and talk about it, which you just said it. People are emotionally addicted to a life they don't want. I'm loosely paraphrasing, but that idea, when I read that in your writings, I thought, you're really onto something important. And so I think what you're suggesting is that if the mind and brain, not really separate, but let's separate them for a moment. The brain is the hardware and the mind is the software. It breaks down quickly. But if they're doing their job, they're trying to keep you alive. They're sweeping the environment, to your language, scanning for all the reasons that a threat could disrupt or end their life. And so I think what you're saying in this idea is that that alertness, there's a chemistry that is pretty addicting to that.
Yeah.
It feels good. It's a beta brainwave.
It's essential for survival. And
you're saying we like that so much that we'll just keep scanning to find the dangers, to find the reasons that things could go wrong, reasons I should be frustrated. And then because of that, I'm now exhausted. I'm now poisoning my system.
Yeah, so let's just talk about that. Let's unpack that a little bit, because I think
I saw the corners of your eyes light up when I said that.
Well, because living in stress is living in survival, right? And stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of homeostasis. Stress response is what the body innately does to return itself back to order, okay? Well, all biological organisms can tolerate short-term stress. A zebra gets chased by the lion, it outruns the lion, it goes back to grazing and eating, and it goes back into balance, right? So all organisms can do that. You get cut off on the freeway, you jam on the brakes, and then you're over it, right? For most people. But when you turn on the stress response and you can't turn it off, now you're headed for disease, because no organism can live in emergency mode for that extended period of time. Now, human beings, because of the size of the frontal lobe, we can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. That's the problem. Now,
that's the trick.
Yeah. So if you're forecasting some future worst case scenario based on the past, and you're actually imagining that future unfolding, your body, as the objective mind, begins to feel the emotion of that future before it happens. And now you're conditioning your body to become the mind of anxiety, the mind of fear, right? And again, thought and a feeling, image, emotion, stimulus, response. The body's being conditioned into fear. Okay, so now you say to that person, why are you this way? And they'll say, I am this way because of these events that have happened to me 10 years ago. What they're really saying is I had an event that's changed me biologically, and I have not been able to change since. Okay, so if you can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, and those chemicals, those hormones of stress are addictive, the arousal, you can become addicted to your own thoughts, and this is why it's hard to change. Well, if the long-term effects of the hormones of stress push the genetic buttons and create disease, that's a fact, and you can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, your thoughts can make you sick. All right, no, that's the ultimate mind-body connection. So when you tell a person that and they go, oh my God, you ask them, if your thoughts can make you sick, is it possible that your thoughts can make you well? And so we did a study where we just took people and we said, Trade frustration, trade impatience, trade resentment for a heart-centered emotion. Let's hook you up to an HRV and let's have you practice. Get really good at feeling appreciation, gratitude, kindness, care. Let's get you in that state. Is it possible then that you can upregulate the proteins for your immune system and downregulate the secretion of cortisol? And the amount of immunoglobulin A, which is a really important, natural flu shot for the body, went up 50% in the participants. So the body actually is believing it's living in an environment that's nurturing, right? And so it could be that immediate. Now,
this is a loving kindness meditation or a heart-centered
meditation. Yeah. 15 minutes. 15 minutes a day, twice a day or 3 times a day for 3 days. That's it. That's how fast it can happen. Now, the caveat behind this is that just like breaking any addiction, you're going to go through a lot of withdrawals because the body's going to be craving the chemical, right? So we've discovered, again, when a person is sitting in a meditation and they're coming up against their frustration, they're coming up against their resentment, they're coming up against their impatience, instead of saying, I can't meditate, I'm too busy, I'm getting on my cell phone, I have too many things to do. Nobody else in the herd or the flock or the tribe, just everybody's sitting, right? So a person, we're not asking them to white knuckle it, we're giving them something to do. We're teaching them how to lower the volume to that emotion, settle the body back down as the mind, and teach them what to do with that. So the act of doing that, breaking that, the inhibition process, breaking the stimulus and response, the body's craving 20 years or 10 years of frustration.
More stimulus, more stimulus,
yeah, more stimulus. So what it does is
adrenaline.
It starts to send images to the brain like, think of the time in your life, and it's trying to reproduce that chemical. So this takes an enormous amount of energy, an enormous amount of awareness to be able to free the body from the chains of the past. And yet, once you learn how to do it, it's tedious in the beginning. If the person truly can get beyond their addiction to that emotion, the absence of that emotional addiction is called joy. The body's no longer tormented. So the side effect...
That's interesting framing, that the absence...
Yeah, the side effect of that is there's a complete change in the body's physiology.
So would you say is your position that is our default?
I think it's one of the major defaults.
Joy.
I think the default to frustration is automatic, right? You just need to see a person or a circumstance or have a thought, and seamlessly you're feeling the emotion from your past, and you're behaving like you're in your past, and you're believing everything that goes along with your past.
What is the natural state of the human? Is it joy, or is there a natural state that you say, no, it's not? It's not like there's a default to happiness or joy or peace. It's not that simple, but we can cultivate specific actions and thought patterns to increase the amount of joy.
I think the majority of time, people are on alert. They're in high beta brainwave states. They're vigilant. They're ready. When we're living in stress and we're living in survival, all of our attention is on our environment. That's where the danger is. Mm-hmm. All of our attention is on our body because we're getting the rush of chemistry and adrenaline, and all of our attention is on time. How much time is we got to make this go away, right? And so when you break free from the state of survival, which pretty much is about 70% of the time for most people.
So is the world dangerous and hostile, or is it safe for you?
For me?
Mm-hmm. It's like a fundamental decision to make. The world is either dangerous or safe.
Yeah, for the most part, I feel like it's a safe place. I think when you're living in survival, I think you'll always perceive it as a dangerous place.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the opposite side of that, and this is kind of what we've discovered, I think when you live in something other than survival, you live in a state of creation. And I think a state of creation is when energy naturally moves into the heart, and the heart is the creative center. When you're living in stress and you're living in survival, your brain is completely incoherent. because you're trying to control and predict everyone and everything in your life. So stress is created by the loss of control, the perception that something's going to get worse or something that you can't predict, right? So the alarm system switches on. So the next thing you start doing is you try to control and predict everything in your life. Well, every person, every object, everything, every place is mapped neurologically in your brain. You've got a neurological network for your wife, for your husband, for your kids, for your dog, for where you live, where you work, your phone, you know. So as we shift our attention to each one of these different elements, like a lightning storm in the clouds, in that aroused high beta state, the different compartments of the brain begin to modulate and they begin to fire out of order. If you measure that on the brain, it's waves that are out of order and they cancel each other out, and the brain is incoherent, we're incoherent. Same thing happens in the heart. You're stepping on the gas and you're stepping on the brake. You're on a Zoom meeting, someone's talking, and you're thinking about, oh my God, your emotional response is not the best. But you're not running, you're not fighting, you're not hiding, you're sitting there, right? So you're stepping on the gas and the brake, and the heart starts beating very, very much out of order, becomes very incoherent. Same thing, the energy in the heart goes down. You can't trust, it's not a time to communicate, you know the story. So we've discovered that where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So we teach people then, if you can place your attention on your heart, slow your breathing down, you slow your brain waves down. And teach them how to work with their body and convert from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system and get their body in that state. It takes practice. It takes a lot of work. In the beginning, you're working with the animal, and the animal's juiced up and it's ready to go, and you got to teach it that the threat, the danger is over, and it's not very trusting in the beginning. So slow your breathing down, slow your brain waves down, convert over. Put your attention on your heart, and let's practice feeling some heart-centered, some elevated emotions. If a person can sustain that state, we'll see their heart get very coherent. When it gets coherent, energy builds, and if they can sustain it, something really beautiful happens. It's almost like the heart informs the brain that the trauma is over, and it resets the baseline for the past event where the emotion is attached to. And we've seen this numerous times. It tells the amygdala, it's over, like the trauma's over, and then all of a sudden, the body resets and the brain resets, and the person all of a sudden, like grabbing a big sheet and going like this, they go right out of beta, high beta, and they go right into alpha, coherent alpha. And the heart's telling the brain, get creative. The other thing we discovered, Mike, is that when you're pressed like that, we tend to overfocus. We tend to narrow our focus on the cause of the problem. Like any of us who have been under stress know that, for the most part, you're obsessing, you're ruminating, you're over-focused on something. And we discover that when you do that, you actually make your brain worse 100% of the time, like because you're analyzing your life within that disturbing emotion. That emotion is a record of the past, and you're driving it into higher and higher beta, right? So we thought, oh my God, what if we do the opposite?